Szanowny Panie Sekretarzu Generalny,
And distinguished Mr. Secretary General,
Szanowny Panie Ministrze,
distinguished Mr. Minister,
Szanowna Pani Sekretarz Stanu,
distinguished Madam Secretary of State,
Ekscelencje,
Excellencies,
wszyscy dostojni goście, Szanowni Państwo.
all distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen.
Za kilka godzin
In a couple of hours' time, right here at the National Stadium in Warsaw, we will hold an official inauguration ceremony of the North Atlantic Alliance Summit, of the NATO Summit.
przygotowania do tego wydarzenia
The preparations for this event started together with the end of the Newport Summit in Wales, and they lasted for almost 2 years. Today,
na samym końcu tej drogi.
we have reached the very end of this road, and precisely therefore that today's conference, which is taking place on this historic day, is of particular importance. We understand very well how significant the challenges which are facing us are, and we know what response we should take vis-à-vis those challenges. I would like to thank the main organizers of this meeting, the Polish Institute of International Affairs, and also all the co-organizers and partners. GLOBSEC, Atlantic Council, Center for Strategic and International Studies, and the German Marshall Fund. Thank you for having created to us the possibility of broader reflection and debate on the role that NATO plays as a guarantor of international peace. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you to all of you. Thank you to the staff of think tanks and institutes. Thank you for your creative contribution aimed at building a safe transatlantic community. Today's conference is also a crowning of your work, of your analysis and your recommendations. Those have inspired us and gave us food for thought. And by doing so, they have impacted the decisions of the government agencies, and therefore they have influenced the shape of the political reality. Ladies and gentlemen, the core function of the North Atlantic Alliance is the defense of peace. The message of Lord Ismay, the first Secretary General of NATO, is encapsulated in the title of today's conference. What is significant is the fact that more than 25 years after the end of the Cold War, when history was supposed to finish, we are coming back to the thought expressed by one of the founders of the alliance. The events of the last years, the annexation of Crimea and the conflict in Donbass, the war in Syria, terrorism and mass migrations have hit especially strong our conviction of the permanence and stability of the existing international order. Amongst the citizens of our countries, there is a growing fear about the future of the world as we know it. This gives upon us a big obligation for politicians. Together, we have to do everything we can to allow our citizens to achieve their main striving, the striving for life in peace, life free from uncertainty, life free from fear, from concerns. And precisely therefore, the North Atlantic Alliance, during its summit at Warsaw, has to demonstrate unity, solidarity, furthermore, determination in the implementation of this core task. In the course of preparations for the summit, during all my foreign visits and meetings with allies, also, I have had several meetings with Secretary General of NATO. I have kept stressing that the foundation of providing guarantees of peace and security in relations among states is common defense of international law. Together, we have to do our utmost to confirm credibility of the alliance as the guarantor of peace based on freedom and law, precisely. Exactly these values are behind the logic of our actions. The threat for Allied security are not individual countries or individual nations. This threat is demonstrated by the policy of force, which does not take account of the norms of international law. Even such basic norms as the right to territorial integrity or state sovereignty, guaranteeing freedom to nations, freedom to decide about their own fate. Here at Warsaw, NATO has to prove that it is and it is going to be a living, robust and credible alliance for the sake of peace, freedom and democracy. In order to remain in this way, one needs to significantly strengthen its deterrence and defense potential. No matter which directions threats are emanating from, no matter what the nature of those threats is, be they conventional or be they hybrid threats, together we have to demonstrate that there is no consent on our part on the policy of blackmail and aggression. Together we have to ensure that everyone who just for a moment is tempted to apply the law of force will come to understand very quickly that it simply does not pay off. Only then will we understand what the strength of law really means. In practical terms, it means today that we have to establish an enhanced presence of the alliance in Central and Eastern Europe and provide an adequate response to complex challenges connected with conflicts in North Africa and in the Middle East. Both strengthening of the eastern flank by a real enhanced NATO's presence as well as response to challenges on the southern flank are parallel priorities. They are absolutely not contradictory to each other. It is a matter of our common responsibility of the allies. Hence, we cannot talk about giving a favorable treatment to any of these. I want to stress it particularly strong. We are opposed to regionalization of security and to divide it into individual NATO's flanks. Security is not a commodity. Security is a value, and as such, it is indivisible. And every one of us deserves it in the same way, every single state and every society. And precisely therefore, providing a parallel feeling of security to all citizens of NATO member states is our great common task, which we have to implement and achieve at the NATO Warsaw Summit. We understand very well that every single state is both a provider as well as a recipient of security within NATO. And precisely this is the core principle of allied responsibility. For many years, Poland has supported its Baltic allies acting for the sake of security of the Baltic Sea and the eastern flank. We are members of international anti-ISIL or anti-Daesh coalition. We have increased our armed forces spending, and we are implementing their intensive modernization. Hence, we understand very well that an effective strengthening of deterrence and defense within NATO requires solidarity from all allies everywhere where it is necessary. It also requires a responsible development of one's own armed forces. Ladies and gentlemen, we want to live in a stable and friendly international environment, an environment which ensures to all individuals a creative development and to societies. It ensures what we need so much, what all of us want to have: peace, calm, and welfare. Nobody of us wants that relations among nations resemble those described in the Leviathan by Thomas Hobbes, a British philosopher, encapsulated in the famous Latin motto, Homo homini lupus est. Precisely therefore, we believe that the future of our relations with other states should be described by a dialogue based on law, on predictability and mutual respect. This dialogue, however, has to be conducted by the alliance, which is strong and whose societies are convinced about its strength. This cannot mean an acceptance for the violation of international obligations. It cannot take place at the cost of allied principles either, of deterrence and collective defense. This is absolutely basic. These are basic preconditions for its effectiveness. The history of Europe has demonstrated that isolation and particular interests always lead to conflicts, whereas building peaceful relations, inclusive model of cooperation is conducive to friendly relations. That is why the Warsaw NATO summit is a great opportunity to give a new impulse to the allied open door policy and cooperation with our partners. Hence, we are satisfied to welcome Montenegro to NATO. This is another step stabilizing that situation in the Western Balkan region, and it is a positive example for other states who are aspiring to the Euro-Atlantic structures. We are in favor of enhanced engagement of the North Atlantic Alliance in Eastern Europe. That means deepening of our relations with Georgia, with Ukraine, and with Moldova. In parallel, we should support our partners in the non-stable area of North Africa and the Middle East. The foundation and the strength of NATO lies in strong bonds linking both sides of the Atlantic. It is not possible to imagine the alliance without an active involvement of American and Canadian troops. I very much hope that during the Warsaw Summit, we are going to prove that a transatlantic community today is in a better shape than it has ever been before, not only through declarations, but through concrete decisions, increasing our engagement in collective defense and strengthening our military capabilities where they are most needed by us. To make sure that the voice of the Euro-Atlantic community is as uniform as possible, it is important also to tighten relations between NATO and the European Union. This is of crucial importance, especially today, when we are faced with divisions and insecurity which stems from such divisions in a natural way. Ladies and gentlemen, I have a vivid recollection when, more than 1 year ago, shortly after the presidential elections, I met Secretary General of NATO in Poland. That was on the 18th of June, 2015. We talked about the preparations for today's summit, as well as about challenges faced by the alliance. Back then, I said that to ensure or to provide an effective response to the threats to our security, we have to go beyond the framework of the Wales summit, of the Newport summit. We have to face boldly both the current challenges as well as challenges awaiting us in not too distant future. The building of the Allied security, ladies and gentlemen, is not a single act. It is a process of a permanent nature which demands from us unity, solidarity, responsibility, and determination. Only then will we be able to effectively defend peace based on freedom and law. It's only several hours left till the opening of the summit. I firmly believe that it is going to be, and that it already is, a historic event. An event during which the alliance will prove its strength, its unity, and its efficiency. I am convinced that the Warsaw Summit will be concluded with a success, and that it will achieve what is so important to us, it will lead to the strengthening of the entire transatlantic community for the sake of strengthening and building of cooperation among nations, among states, and peace in the world, peace based on law. Thank you very much for your attention.